A new year arrives. This month, government shuffling at the Bosporus, the beginning of the Ottoman military tribunals for crimes committed during World War I, war and peace at the Caucasus, and the Greek Prime Minister Eleftherios Venizelos deposits his claims in a memorandum before the Paris Peace Conference. On this episode of Salvation and Catastrophe, the Greek-Turkish War, 1919-1923. During January 1919, there is a reignition of the military clashes between the Armenian Democratic Republic and the Azerbaijani Democratic Republic. The main foci of their conflict were the heavily Armenian-populated Nagorno-Karabakh area, the mixed-population Zanke-Zur area, and the Muslim-populated Nakivikan, which controls most of the railway that could connect Armenia with Iran, back then known as Persia. Ittihadists, members of the Committee of Union and Progress Party, located in the Ottoman Empire, actively assisted the Azeri forces in their conflict with the Armenians. The most important of them was Enver Pasha's uncle, Halil Pasha, later known as Kut, who had received the accolades of the Kut Alamara victory, despite the fact that bearded Nureddin Pasha had done most of the work. Halil Pasha, by his own admission, was one of the main perpetrators of the Armenian genocide and massacres of Assyrian Christians. On some point in early 1919, the exact date being unclear, a number of junior officers of the Ottoman army that were opposed to the Committee of Union and Progress formed the secret organization Nigehban, which means the Guardian. They never amounted to much. Andrew Mango calls them losers. That said, they did survive an attempt by War Minister Cevat, later known Çobanli, to disperse them. On 4th January 1919, the Times of London published an interview with Greek Prime Minister Eleftherios Venizelos. This is part of his propaganda campaign in support of Greek positions. In it, Venizelos stressed the need to found the League of Nations, but also the need to be realistic about its early years. He again attacked King Constantine for his political stance in the 1915-1917 years. He recognized that the king's policy had invalidated any promises made by Entente leaders in 1915-1916 to Greece. But he believed that the Greek claims were based on the principles the Entente claimed to fight the war over. He hoped that Greece would receive Northern Epirus, which was also considered and called the South Albania, in return for Italy receiving control of the port of Lores, also known as Avlon. He believed that Greek claims in Thrace would be served in a natural border easy to find with Bulgaria. He assured that with the new international legal system concerning commerce, Bulgaria not having a port in the Aegean would not impact its economic life, and that Greece would be willing to give transit rights to Bulgaria similar to what will be given to the also landlocked country of Czechoslovakia. He further argued that the decision of the Allies to permit Ottoman sovereignty only in what he calls the pure Turkish areas of the empire meant that it needed to end in Constantinople, Istanbul. Despite the Greek clear claims to Istanbul, Constantinople, he said that Greece will be willing to accept the city becoming part of the League of Nations mandate or protectorate. In the east, he called for the separation and union of East Armenia, or the so-called 6 vilayets, and Russian Armenia, including the vilayets of Adana and Trapezon, known in Greek as Trapezunda. In Western Asia Minor, including parts of the vilayets of Bursa and most of the vilayet of Aydin, should be included in Greece. The new border will be clarified by voluntary emigration between Turks and the new Greek state, and Greeks in the new Ottoman Anatolian state. He hoped that with the support of President Wilson, he would be able to persuade Italy to cede the Deccanese islands, with their very large Greek populations, to Greece. On 6 January 1919, at Ardahan, in what used to be Russian Caucasus, an area that used to belong to the Ottoman Empire, the Ardahan Congress of Caucasian Muslims takes place, which is opposed to the incorporation of the area into either Armenia or Georgia. On 9 January 1919, there comes the end of the Armenian-Georgian conflict over the area of Lori. The ceasefire was brokered by the British, and essentially the region was divided between the two states and declared a neutral zone. This did not help heal Armenian-Georgian relations, as continued Armenian support for Anton Denikin's white Russian forces was considered an anathema for the Georgians. The same day, the Les Temps of France published an interview with Greek Prime Minister Eleftherios Venizelos. In it, Venizelos declares that if Bulgarian-held Thrace and most of Ottoman Thrace are not ceded to Greece, Greece will not be able to survive. Nor can Thrace do so if not united with the motherland, which for him is Greece. He also claimed all of Asia Minor, but recognized that Greece could not incorporate all of what he called Asian Greece, which really means Eastern and Central Anatolia in this case. Greece will only ask for Smyrna, Izmir, and Aydin and Bursa vilayets. It will also ask for all of the islands of the Eastern Mediterranean, including Cyprus. He also repeated the Greek claims on northern Epirus and stressed that Greece must always have a say in the future of Constantinople Istanbul. On 12 January 1919, Grand Vizier Ahmet Tevfik Pasha forms a new administration. Omer Yaver Pasha, a purged veteran officer of the First Balkan War, replaced Cevat, later known as Çobanli, as war minister. That said, Lieutenant General Fevzi, later known Çakmak, became chief of the general staff. He was a nationalist and a person who had some connections with the circle of officers friendly to Kemal Atatürk. On 17th January 1919, Eleftherios Venizelos, Prime Minister of Greece, is honored with a dinner by the Armenian representative mission to the Paris Peace Conference. Venizelos was one of the few statesmen to strongly support the Armenian Republic, and one of the few that formally recognized it as a state. The Entente powers hadn't done that yet. Greece was the only state beyond the UK and Anton Denikin who sent arms to Armenia, though the Canadian Rose rifles that were sent by Greece were largely useless to the Armenians who didn't have the capacity to service them. The Italian newspaper Tribune published an interview again with the Prime Minister. In it, Venizelos ties a ceding of the Deccanese to Greece with the ceding of Cyprus to Greece from the United Kingdom, and called both of them a moral act. He reminded the Italians of his respect to their claims during the First Balkan War. He declared that Greece will be supportive of an Italian expansion in Antalya. So he is trying to get the Italians to focus on expanding in southern Anatolia so he can get rid of them in western Anatolia. On 18th January 1919, finally the Paris Peace Conference formally begins. In Caucasus, at Kars, the Great Kars Conference declares the provisional national government of the southwestern Caucasus, with the support of the Ottoman military authorities at the city of Erzurum. It is opposed to any incorporation into Armenia. On 19 January 1919, Eleftherios Venizelos, Prime Minister of Greece, submits in writing a memorandum with the Greek claims at the peace treaty. This memorandum is also published as a pamphlet in English and French and widely distributed. You may find an English copy of the link in the description of the video below. Now, I'm going to take a very small amount of time to talk about this memorandum because it's very important for the war. Very briefly, Venizelos claimed that there were 4,300,000 Greeks in Greece, 151,000 Greeks in northern Epirus, southern Albania, and Albania proper, 731,000 Greeks in Thrace and Constantinople Istanbul, 43,000 in Bulgaria, 1,694,000 in Asia Minor, 102,000 in the Deccanese, 235,000 in Cyprus, and another 1 million worldwide. Thus 50% of the population of Greeks lived in Greece and 45% outside it. He claimed northern Cyprus, with the exception of some border regions, on the basis that the Greeks were 120,000 and the Albanians 80,000, and that it will be unfair for a majority with a higher culture to be incorporated into Albania for the sake of a minority of lower culture. Furthermore, Albania was not a sovereign state and will not be one for a while. Venizelos recognized that part of the Greek population was Albanian speaking, but he declared that since their national consciousness was Greek, language was of a secondary importance. He brought as an example the service of Albanian-speaking Greeks, known as Arvanites, in the Greek Revolution and Balkan Wars. He further noted that the Vice Prime Minister of Greece, Veropoulis, Admiral Koundouriotis, the hero of Greece during the Balkan Wars, and General Danglis were all native Albanian speakers. He then focused a bit more in detail on the question of Koritsa. Finally, he argues that the Allies, by their policy in the 1914-1918 period, had de facto recognized a Greek right to northern Epirus. In Thrace, he claimed Bulgarian policy during the period before the Balkan Wars had de facto recognized the dominance of the Greek population. He recognized that Greeks in Istanbul, Constantinople were a bit fewer than the Turkish Muslim population, but expected that the creation of the state of the Straits would further augment Greek claims to the rest of Thrace. The expulsion of Bulgaria had to be done on the principle of nationality, and a natural border could be drawn, giving Greece a clearly Greek-dominated region with a small 60,000 strong Bulgarian minority, which he hoped he would exchange with a 43,000 strong Greek minority in all Bulgaria. Indeed, he argued, if Romania agreed to restore parts of Dobruja to Bulgaria, then for Venizelos, Bulgaria had no right to oppose the territorial change, as it would come out of the war with more territory than it had before. He further made clear that Greece will be willing to give commercial transit rights to Bulgaria in the Aegean, either towards the port of Kavala or the Deagach. He raised the threat of submarines using Bulgarian Aegean ports to threaten the Straits in the future as a further reason for expulsion. The above arguments, he claimed, were not made with bias against Bulgaria on the basis of its war policies. He then raises that very issue, the Bulgarian policy of 1913-1918, and accuses Bulgaria of hegemonic ambitions in the Balkans based on nothing but military might. He further argues that even the most ardent Bulgarian nationalists claim a population of 5 million Bulgarians in the Balkans, much smaller than that of the Greeks, or the Romanians, or the Yugoslavians. He then blames Bulgaria for the Second Balkan War, and openly says that he was willing to sacrifice 1 million Greeks in territories claimed by Bulgaria in 1913 if Bulgaria was willing to accept Greek territorial gains from the First Balkan War, and most important of all, Greek occupation of Thessaloniki, Solun, Selanik. Greeks considered liberation. In general, he stresses his accommodationist policy towards Bulgaria between 1912 and 1916, and Bulgarian intransigence. He furthermore stresses that this hegemonic policy was a popular policy in Bulgaria, and thus not one tied to any one Bulgarian administration. The fact that Stamboliski now ruled and Tsar Ferdinand was gone meant nothing, because Bulgarians are like Prussians. They have a militarist culture that is unable to seek anything but hegemony in the Balkans. Thus, for Venizelos, until the popular view in Bulgaria and the culture changes, it should not be treated with leniency, because that leniency will lead to future war. On Istanbul, Constantinople, he claims that the 12th point of Wilson made it impossible for it to remain as part of the Ottoman Empire, because the Vilayet of Constantinople had a population of 1,173,670 people, of which only 449,914 were Turks. The natural solution will be the comparison of the Vilayet in Greece, since Greeks were 334,459 of the city population and the second largest group. And also the city had been historically a Greek city. However, if the League of Nations is created, then it was possible for Greece to accept the creation of an internationalized state of the Straits, which would include Istanbul, Constantinople. On Asia Minor, he argues that again on the basis of the 12th Wilsonian point, Ottoman sovereignty should be restricted to the interior of Asia Minor, where the Turkish population was the majority. In the east, he called for the 6 Armenian vilayets in union with Russian Armenia to become a separate state under a League of Nations mandate given to one of the major powers. He argues that the Hamidian and Committee of Union and Progress policies of extermination have changed the demography of the region, but that awarding those regions to the Ottoman Empire would be rewarding those very policies of extermination. He furthermore argues that the Vilayet of Trabzon should be incorporated into the Armenian state, with its Greek population of 350,000 people, the Pontic Greeks. So should the Vilayet of Adana, with a population of 70,000 people. In the west, he claims that in the vilayets of Aydin and Bursa, up to the Sanjaks of Dardanelles, Gelibolu, and Nicomedia, Izmir, there are 1,013,185 Greeks. He argues that they are the main element of the native population, but not the majority. To get a majority, Venizelos makes the following interesting and problematic argument. He argues that the population of the islands of the Western Aegean, which was very overwhelmingly Greek, should be included in that Asia Minor population because of their economic dependency and geographic proximity to that region. This will prove to be a very dangerous precedent, as it led credence to the 1914 Committee of Union and Progress arguments for the retention of the Western Aegean islands, and partly fuels the current Aegean issue. With the islands included into Asia Minor, the Greek population of Western Asia Minor is 1,383,333 people. Of those, 194,964 should fairly remain in the Ottoman state, those being the areas of Bursa and Izmit, or as part of the Istanbul state, which will be the areas of Gelibolu. The remaining population of 1,188,359 Greeks should justly be incorporated into Greece. All over the Western Aegean islands, part of the Bursa Vilayet, excluding the city of Bursa itself and the Izmit Vilayet in the areas east of it, most of Aydin Vilayet, excluding the extremely overwhelming Muslim Sanjak of Denizli, should be incorporated into Greece. The remaining area will have a Greek population of 1,188,359 and a Muslim population of 1,442,050. He then gave geographic and cultural reasons for considering this part of Asia Minor as distinct from the rest of it. Venizelos argues that the Asia Minor Greeks want incorporation into Greece as opposed to autonomy, which is what technically Wilson's point calls for in the Ottoman Empire. He argued that the creation of an autonomous state in Western Asia Minor would lead to the creation of a second Greek state de facto, and would fuel irredentism and political conflicts. He also argues against restoring Ottoman rule, which he claims has shown an inability for reform, and accuses of killing 700,000 Ottoman Armenians and 300,000 Ottoman Greeks during the First World War, and furthermore expelling 450,000 Ottoman Greeks to Greece. This recent history makes it unjust, he argues, to restore Ottoman rule over these populations. As far as the argument that the port of Smyrna, Izmir, is important for the economic vitality of the Ottoman Empire, Venizelos once more argues that, first of all, it will have other ports, Adana, Antalya, Sinop, in its remaining territory, and that if need be, under the auspices of the League of Nations, a special agreement for commercial transit rights can be made. He also argues that the Asia Minor Greeks are the purest element of the Greek nation, and that their incorporation will make Greece a stronger state. Now, he recognizes that east of this Greek territorial claim there are still living 922,454 Greeks, who he hopes will either be included in the Straits state or the Armenian state, those who would remain in the rule of the Turkish government, which is mostly the Cappadocian Greeks or the Cappadocian Rum, should be provided with the option to voluntarily emigrate to the regions incorporated in the Greek state with compensation from properties left. In exchange, the Greek state would also do the same for the Ottoman Muslims who would wish to leave the Greek state for the Anatolian Ottoman state. In time, for Venizelos, this would create a population movement that will lead to two homogeneous nation states. He finishes by reminding the major powers of their promises of 1915, then arguing that even though the royal policy has annulled and invalidated those promises, the reality was that the Greek population was opposed to that royal policy, and thus they shouldn't be punished for what the king did. He finally argues that only Greek rule can fairly and in agreement with declared Allied principles replace Turkish rule in Western Asia Minor. No other great power should be given that territory, which he really means Italy there, but he doesn't actually use that term. Concerning the islands, Greece claims all the Western Aegean islands and hopes that Italy, with respect to the geographic and demographic reality of the Dodokanese, will cede them to Greece. Let us consider a bit what Venizelos did here. First, the claims he made here are his maximum claims at the moment. He does not present them like this, presenting himself as stepping down from even more maximalist expansive claims to Eastern Asia Minor and on Constantinople, Istanbul. But the reality is that this is his opening gambit. He knows that he will have to retreat from them. Second, he makes sure to base his claims on either Wilson's 12 principles, wartime declarations of the Entente powers about why they're fighting this war, their strategic concerns, and finally, demographic reality. He avoids claiming that these should be given to Greece because of historical rights. He rejects a linguistic definition of national identity, preferring to stress national consciousness, which permits him to make claims on Albanian and Turkish-speaking Orthodox Christians. He mobilizes the popular chauvinistic ideas about cultural superiority, inferiority, and he presents himself as understanding to Ottoman and Bulgarian economic concerns and ready to accommodate them according to the new spirit of international law created by the League of Nations. He also presents himself accommodated of the interests of the great powers in Armenia and in Constantinople, Istanbul. In the case of Armenia, he is cognizant of the demographic reality of overwhelming Muslim majorities, which is why he calls for a mandate to run the state until the Armenian population becomes strong enough to control it. Finally, he stresses his interest in the creation of ethnically homogeneous states in Asia Minor. Venizelos strives to present his claims as in agreement with the interests and principles of the Entente powers, and accommodative of what he sees as the just economic concerns of the defeated powers. Knowing that he cannot rely on wartime promises to the Greek policy during World War I in the 1915-1917 period, he stresses the actions of Bulgaria and the Ottoman Empire and makes the argument that their current governments are not really that different from the war governments. Now, what will the region look like if Venizelos had gotten all that he asked for? According to the statistics Venizelos used, the expanded Greek state would have had a population of 9,336,541 people, of which 2,530,638, or 27%, will be non-Greeks. The state of the Straits would have a population of 1,669,945 people, of which 476,423, or 28%, would be Greeks. The Ottoman state in Anatolia would have a population of 6,406,581 people, of which 406,581, or 7%, would be Greeks. The Armenian Mandate state will have a population of 3,607,044, of which 356,132, or 9%, will be Greek, and 1,847,912, or 51%, will be Muslim. If we take the Greek and Armenian numbers for Greek and Armenians, but use Ottoman census numbers for the Muslims, the things are much more problematic. The new Greek state would incorporate 3,498,400 Muslims from the Ottoman Empire. This would raise its population to 10 million people, 304,638, but the non-Greeks will make up to closer to 40% of the population. The state of the Straits will have a Muslim population of 730,385, which will increase its population to 1,900,553 and 30, of which the Muslims will be 37%. The Ottoman Anatolian state will still have a population of around 6 to 7 million. But the Armenian Mandate would incorporate close to 3 million Ottoman Muslims for a total population of 4,756,425, of which 63% will be Muslims. At the end of the process of voluntary population exchange that Venizelos envisioned, that will follow the new borders, the new Greek state will have a population of about 7,500,000 million Greeks. The Armenian state will have a population of about 2 million Greeks and Armenians, and the Ottoman Anatolian state would have a massive population of 12,500,000 Muslims. The long-term strategic problem contained in these numbers are probably apparent to all, and are one of the reasons why Venizelos wanted to make sure a Western mandate would be over Armenia, and why he stressed in his speeches that Greece would become a Muslim power, making clear that large-scale emigration of Muslims from Greece, especially Old Greece, to the Ottoman Anatolian state should be avoided outside of the border regions in Asia Minor. Now, Venizelos did see as the next step of Greek expansion the future union of the state of the Straits, which he expected to be dominated by its Greek population with Greece, to be followed by a Balkan confederation, including the Ottoman Anatolian state. He believed that this would counterbalance the problematic demographic balance that existed between that Ottoman Anatolian state and Greece and Armenia. On 20th January 1919, we have the arrival of the first units of the Greek Expeditionary Force at Odessa, Ukraine. Venizelos had hoped that the whole thing would have been called off, but he was wrong. The French, especially Clemenceau, were determined to support White Russian forces under General Anton Denikin. At full strength, the expeditionary force will include 23,351 men of the A Army Corps, including the 3rd Division under Major General Nikolaos Vlachopoulos with the 1st, 7th and 34th Infantry Regiments, and the 3rd Division under Major General Iakovos Negroponte with the 2nd, 3rd Infantry Regiments and the 5/42 Evzon Regiment of Nikolaos Plastiras. Initial command was given to Lieutenant General Konstantinos Nider, an interesting officer who had not joined the national defense government of Venizelos during the national schemes in World War I, but neither had been purged with the other Konstantinist officers in 1917. He had commanded the 1st Greek Division during the First World War. He was later replaced as commander of the expeditionary force by Major General Iakovos Negroponte in May 1919, when he was given command of the Greek forces that were landing in Asia Minor, according to the Greeks to liberate the region, according to the Turks to occupy it. You can read more about the campaign in Greek in a linked document in the description. The campaign negatively affected any potential agreements between the Greek state and the Bolsheviks, though to be frank at this point that was highly unlikely, and in turn affected the relations of Pontic Greeks and Armenia with the Bolsheviks. And it was also heavily opposed by the Bolshevik Socialist Revolutionary Party of Greece, also known as Second Socialist Labour Party of Greece. Correction there. On 22nd January 1919, Richard Hovasinian, in his book The Armenian Republic, reports a failed attempt at an all-Russian conference, including the Soviets under Anglo-American auspices at Istanbul, Constantinople. On 25th January 1919, Dr. Mehmet Rashid, a veteran member of the Committee of Union and Progress and one of the main perpetrators of the Armenian genocide in the region of Diyarbakir, in prison since the fall of the Committee of Union and Progress governments in October 1918, escapes and commits suicide in order to avoid capture. Damat Ferit Pasha, leader of the liberal Damat, used this event as an opportunity to attack Ahmet Tevfik Pasha's being soft on the Committee of Union and Progress. On 29-30 January 1919, the first group of Committee of Union and Progress members is arrested as part of the Ottoman court-martials for crimes committed during World War I. This included Karakol founder Kara Kemal, Ismail Canbulat, and Dr. Tevfik Rustu Arash, another friend of Kemal Atatürk. Both the Renewal Party and the Ottoman People's Liberal Party are opposed to the trials and the arrests. And that's where we leave it for the time being. The sources used in these episodes are Stefanu Ioannou Stefan, τα κείμενα του Ελευθερίου Βενιζέλου, Volume 2, Βίβλος Ελευθερίου Βενιζέλου, Volume 4, Andrew Mango, Ataturk, the Greek Memorandum to the Paris Peace Conference, written by Eleftherios Venizelos, by Richard Hovhannissian, The Republic of Armenia, Fuat Tundar, Modernie Türkiye Sifresi, the Ottoman 1914 census reproduced in Kemal Canbulat, and the Orthodox Patriarchate 1910-1912 census reproduced in Christomelidis and Alexiadis. See you next month. Take care until then, and be well.